The Jason Rigden Show is recorded in Seattle, Washington in front of a live studio audience of indifferent but cute cats. You can support this podcast by giving us a rating and review on iTunes, sharing this episode on social media, or just by telling a friend about the show. You can also support the show financially on Patreon. Just visit patreon.com/Jason Rigden.
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm currently recording music under the name Something About the Hills.
And I think you fairly recently released an album or an EP.
Yeah, it was just a short little 3-song EP, which might, I guess, depending on the technicality of the platform, isn't even long enough to be an EP. A couple of the platforms actually just called it a single, but that's fine. I released it at the beginning of September, which feels like a very long time ago already.
And when did you record it?
I believe most of the recording started about a year ago in last October. So I've sort of been working on a handful of songs for a while. And then when March and April and COVID came around, I found myself with a little bit more time to try to work on things. And those 3 songs sort of came together quicker than some of the other ones I was working on. And I felt instead of continuing to work on a fuller album, I felt like it was right to just sort of let those 3 songs go. I kind of felt like they were a good little trio of songs on their own, and I didn't really want to sit on it. And with everything going on, I just decided let's share these.
And had you released music before?
Not like this. I've never released anything professionally. I've been in a couple, bands, and we've always sort of done some DIY recording, and I've had an album up on Bandcamp before, but nothing, with a label, nothing official. This was the first time I tried like an online distribution. It's the first time, trying to get stuff on like Spotify and iTunes. Also the first time trying to really do something solo without collaborators.
And how was that experience?
Difficult. I've always found it much easier working with people musically. I certainly have creative abilities, but I feel like most of the people I've worked with in the past were the suppliers of most of the creative momentum. There was a lot of collaborative songwriting and whatnot, but I kind of felt like the other people tended to drive most of the creative momentum. And so this time, that was mostly on me. So, and that's not something I can just like turn on and turn off. I'm not a prolific songwriter. I'm not one of those guys who can sort of sit down and just pump out stuff all the time. So I think honestly, like for me, it was just sort of a point where I needed to realize more appropriate goals for myself. I couldn't just approach this maybe the way I would have in the past. I'd have to be doing a little bit more. And so I wouldn't always be able to engage with maybe the songwriting or the mixing or a particular aspect. And it was helpful to realize that, of course, I can't get everything done at once. I need to be a little bit slower. I need to be a little bit more deliberate and accept that, it's going to be a different experience.
And did you have any help in actually, recording the album, or maybe not recording, but actually playing the music?
No, I played everything on the album. I mixed it all myself. I did send it to be professionally mastered. But as far as the creation of the music, that was pretty much all me. I certainly shared the works in progress with close friends, got some feedback. Also, another one of my good friends, I don't really want to say like he had like sort of like a mentor role because that isn't quite accurate, but he definitely helped me, especially with the last track on the album. He sort of helped me push it in the right direction. I had just sort of lyrics and a melody and some chords, and I liked it, but I couldn't. It was lacking. It wouldn't stand on its own, and I was having a hard time trying to figure out where to take it. And he gave me some ideas, both um, just verbal ideas in a conversation. Why don't you try this? Or have you thought of this? And another time, he actually took my rough mix and added some stuff. He's sort of like, this is what I'm hearing in my head. And so I took those and, you know, ingested them and turned his ideas into, mine. And I think without his input, I mean, the song certainly wouldn't be the same. I would have probably, finished the song somehow, but he really helped me push it in a direction that I'm really happy with how it turned out.
So I suppose we should go back a little bit. And, there's always a difficult question, but I always ask it of musicians that come on here. It's just, so how would you describe your music?
Yeah, I definitely struggle with classifications and describing it. I will say I in general gravitate towards stringed instruments. I play guitar. I really prefer um, nylon string acoustic guitars. I love the sound. I love the feel of the nylon strings rolling off my fingers when I play. I play electric guitar too. I also play mandolin. And I guess I don't know if it's technically accurate, but I think one of my favorite like genre type descriptors of these songs that someone threw out there was dream folk. I certainly don't really see myself as a folk artist. I'm not really. I feel like that doesn't quite fit. Um, but I definitely sort of have a more acoustic type sound with other elements as well.
And while you're doing this project, who were some of your inspirations that you were kind of pulling from?
Um, that's a good question. Honestly, and this is sort of strange. As someone who loves music and has grown up with music, I've actually found myself listening to a little bit less music than normal the past 6 months. Um, but I can say that I think a lot of this when I was working on writing the songs and playing them and getting them to the point where I felt comfortable recording them, I was listening to a lot of Bonnie Prince Billy, also a great artist that a coworker introduced me to in the past couple of years, Bill Callahan, who also recorded early work under the name Smog. So I definitely think those two gentlemen really, if they didn't influence the songs when I was writing them, they certainly brought me to a place inside where those songs started to coalesce a little bit more. So those are pretty important artists during that time when I was writing those.
And I suppose we should talk about what happened in the last 6 months. We don't really know when people will be listening to this. What happened in the last 6 months?
Oh yeah, well, the pandemic and lots of stress. Everyone is dealing with all sorts of upheaval and extra levels of stress.
Yeah.
Elevated uncertainty.
How do you feel like it's affected
disinformation?
Yeah. How do you think it's affected your creativity?
Ooh, well, honestly, like it sort of killed it a little bit. Um, but it's just sort of helped me realize that, at least for me, creativity is not something I can just expect to happen. It's something I definitely need to work on cultivating. I need to practice being creative. It's not just an inherent trait. Certainly, I can say I'm a creative person, but if I actually want to create creativity and engage with that, it needs to be, something I practice, something I'm deliberate about. Um, and so that has been something where I've just said, okay, well, I guess I just need to work with this. And the days where I'm, really wanting to, work on writing some songs or something more creative, there's days where I just can't do it. And I think it's important for us to realize like that's okay. I mean, like, it sucks to get to that point, but it's not going to get me any further if I'm hard on myself. And it's important to just be gentle and realize, okay, well, I guess that's not today. So I could just, sort of like give up on those plans and say, well, that's not going to work. I'm not feeling it, but that's not going to help me either. So it's been really helpful for me to create like a creative safety net and try to find, I guess I call them like adjacent activities. Like, if I want to work on writing music and I just can't work on writing music, I should still stay engaged with music in a different sense. Maybe I should, like, one day I just I took a song by someone else that I really liked and imported it into my DAW, and I just listened to it. And I sat there with, little like, you can put little markers on the waveforms in the DAW, and I just sort of mapped out the song's structure, just listening to see, oh, what did that part come in earlier or later than I expected? Or, oh, I didn't notice this particular line before. And just sort of looking at the structure of the song. And that way I stayed engaged with the software. I stayed engaged with the workspace. I stayed engaged with the idea, but I wasn't stressing about working on the creative aspect of it. And so I think it's been really helpful for me to find those other like adjacent activities where I can have a list of things to do that I need to accomplish. But if I can't, for whatever reason, be successful or bring myself the right motivation to work on those things, I have a list of some backup things. And they might not be as important. But for me, what's important is just trying to stay with it, even if it's not exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of toxic ideas kind of surrounding creativity, and I think one of the worst ones is just this idea that you always need some kind of artifact, right? You need some kind of resultant product that, of course, you can sell,
right?
And
yeah.
There's not enough respect paid towards what you're saying, almost kind of the sharpening the saw kind of time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were talking about your the DAW and the computer side of it, right? This is all done in your home, I believe, and on open source software.
Yes, yeah. I recorded it in my apartment here in Seattle, and I run Linux, and I use everything open source that I can. I know a bunch about it, but I'm certainly not an expert. It's certainly possible that some of the plugins I'm using might not be open source, but I think in general, most of them are. Either way, if people are making stuff for Linux in general, I think that's worth supporting. It is worth being skeptical of some of the proprietary stuff, but that's not a deal breaker for me. I know for some people that really is. But for me, it's mostly about flexibility, freedom, and easily accessible options. Lots of options available, I think.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about why you choose to use Linux for these projects?
Well, I wish I could recall exactly like the moment that I sort of really gravitated towards Linux, but it was a long time ago. And I think ultimately, well, it's in general, it's free or much more affordable for some of these pieces of software than other ones. And there's something I like about free options. I think a lot, a lot of us. But there's something I don't know. There's always been something really something about the open source idea and community has always given me like this unique little bit of hope that I don't know, maybe some other aspect of our lives could be benefited by um, this idea. Um, I think, I mean, pirating stuff is so easy. So many people do it. I think a lot of young people, one, older people too, but I think a lot of young people that are really starting to get into hobbies that they're interested in, they do their research and they learn and they go and see all these professionals or even, advanced amateurs using like industry standard products. And there's, often good reasons for that. It's really, if you're doing something for work, you might not have a choice. There's certain options that um, you might need professionally that you just don't have. I remember, it can't be all that many years ago, where GIMP on Linux, the Photoshop like alternative, it seemed to only work in RGB and didn't support CMYK. And for a lot of people who worked with Photoshop professionally, like that would be a deal breaker. And but for me, what I'm doing, what's available on Linux works for me. So until I hit a particular need or something that I'm not able to find, it seems like a good option for me. I part of the reason I use it is just because it resonates well with me. But, I always hope that, maybe someone else will hear me talk about it or see what I'm doing and realize that there's options, there's alternatives. You don't have to get, Pro Tools or whatever it is. You also don't have to pirate just to get into your hobby. There are alternatives. And of course, if it's something you want to pursue professionally, yeah, you might have to learn a different piece of software down the road. But isn't learning new things also an important aspect of these things? So I don't think like a lot of people are like, well, just learn what you're going to be using in the end. Well, that's maybe not always practical. And I think piracy is always going to be an issue for lots of things. But we're at a point where a lot of hobbyists could very easily um, pull off fantastic feats with free or very cheap software, and it's I think it's just getting better, um, and it's nice to support people that in a lot of ways are doing things as a labor of love. The For a long time, the DAW I use, our door, was, I think, mostly just written and maintained by one individual. And now I think it's just a couple, a few people working on it. So you'll get a donation from me occasionally.
And did you consider releasing your music under like a Creative Commons license?
I didn't. Well, I shouldn't say I didn't consider it. It crossed my mind. But I didn't pursue it. I don't really expect, to make much money off of this music. But I guess it's always been a little bit of like a goal of mine to just copyright a song. So, for whatever it's worth, I just decided that I was going to do that because it's always something I just wanted to do, mostly just to say I did it. Also, my grandpa was a musician. He was in a small country band, and he wrote a song. I have a little 45 with my grandpa singing a song he wrote on the side A and then an instrumental on side B. And I know after he passed, one of the things my parents found at their house was the actual like copyright registration form he had to fill out back in the day, like the paper form. And so it was just kind of cool seeing that. I was like, oh, it sort of helped me realize, like, oh yeah, just do this one thing, and if you decide not to bother with registering copyrights in the future, that's fine. But it's sort of a bucket list sort of thing, just to say I did it.
And how hard was that going from, getting the copyright and just basically getting it onto Spotify, right? Because that's our new 45s, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, as far as copywriting it, that was sort of interesting because a lot of I asked around a bunch, and I talked to a few gigging musicians who have multiple albums, and they, in general, told me that CD Baby and DistroKid, two of the bigger online distributors these days, they'll take care of registering your copyrights for you. And when I actually looked into it, as far as I can tell, that is completely false. As far as I can tell, none of the online distributors actually deal with registering your copyright. You do need to do that through copyright.gov. I think that's what it is. Either way, you have to do that with the government. I won't get into copyright issues because that's a whole nother so that's a whole nother episode. But what these online distributors do offer that people are confusing with it is registering yourself with a performance right organization or a pro, like BMI or ASCAP. Not something I'm terribly knowledgeable about. I won't talk about it too much, but I will say, if you want your songs, if you want to register the copyright for whatever reason, that is for you to do or for you to pay someone to do that's not related to your online music distributor. As far as getting stuff on Spotify, I assume you can do that yourself. But if you want it on, multiple streaming platforms, it definitely makes more sense to go through an online distributor. I used CD Baby. The other big one is DistroKid. There's many online distributors. Those seem to be the two big names these days. I made my choice for reasons. There's people who like one love it. People who like the other love it. People have had bad experiences with both. It's complicated, but and so I found their site really well laid out, easy to use. Once I had my tracks back from the mastering engineer, I was able to very easily upload them to CD Baby, give them the info, the artwork, all of that stuff, and then they take care of distributing it to every streaming platform that's available. So that was actually really easy. Then there's just a small waiting period where, after you submit it to them, they take a look at it, and then it takes a little while for all the different platforms to get it. But it was actually really pretty easy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when I talk to musicians, and I remember, how it was back in the day. Music distribution is like so different. Back in the day, you'd be giving people cassettes or CDs, and
Yeah.
if somebody across the country wanted to listen to you, they would actually have to like somehow get you to send them. If you're like an indie artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, like literally anybody on the internet can listen to your album in seconds.
Yeah. As someone who still does have a CD collection and some LPs, yeah, I kind of wanted to actually, print some CDs, but it just would not have made sense. There's no way I would sell, enough CDs to actually have a physical product. But there is something nice about physical products still.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't with these Spotify releases, there's no booklet to
Yeah.
go through. Like, I don't. When I listen to your album, I can't look at the little booklet. Really, vinyl was the best because it was
Yeah.
better to read. We can look and read the lyrics and see who maybe contributed and who you think. Usually there's like a whole bunch of information in that little.
And
booklet.
there's info on Spotify too. But really, how often are you browsing through Spotify, reading the info about the artists? It's not too often. So in a way, I miss the physical aspect, but I mean, so many people are using Spotify and everything. I just felt like if I want to share this, the only proper way is to get it on Spotify and iTunes and stuff. If not for me, for the other people.
And so, musically, what do you think is in your future? Do you have any plans you want to share?
Oh, I certainly
hopes.
Yeah, I hope to do this again. Yeah. Part of doing it at all was like, I mean, it seems a little dire, but facing the beginnings of the pandemic and everything, it throws a lot of uncertainty out there. And I said, well, I just want to make sure I do a little something, just a little something. I want to do it again. I want to finish the group of songs that I started working on because there's still, I still really care about the ones I'm trying to work on. It's just hasn't really been a good time for me to engage with those. But at the very least, I want to finish the works in progress that are sitting on my hard drive and share those because there's some good songs there. The next step would be I've started working on a couple new songs. Ideally, I want to be doing some more collaboration with people going forward. But it's also really important to me to continue to do solo work because it's good for me. It's not something that's come easy to me. Also, singing is not something that's ever really been a strong trait for me. It's definitely something I've had to work on. So I'd like to see myself continue to work on it so I can see myself continue to accomplish things that I'm a little surprised I've been able to accomplish.
And if people want to learn more about you and your music, where should they go?
Somethingaboutthehills.com. Simple website, but there's some info there. The email and all sorts of links to the streaming platforms. I also have a Facebook, and Facebook's probably the best way. I do have a Twitter and an Instagram, but they are not very well used.
Well, like Instagram is very hard to figure out how to use for audio stuff. You're like, oh, what can I put on there?
Oh yeah. I didn't even get that far yet. I just took a few pictures of my guitars when they were in the sunlight.
That's a classic thing,
I never had an Instagram account, and it's not like I was like, oh, I need to do this if I'm gonna release some music. But I was like, oh, maybe now is the time I do this thing I haven't tried yet.
Yeah, you can do some photoshops of you playing shows, that don't exist anymore.
Yeah. I was getting to the point where I was thinking about trying to find a couple places to maybe do like an open mic or something. I don't think that's ever anything I've done by myself. I've played plenty of shows with other people. I may have played a song or two by myself at a show, but I've never, just gone completely on my own, or if I have, it's been a long time. But I was working up to going and actually playing and singing some songs I've written, and I haven't played in front of people I haven't played like a proper show in over a decade. So sort of fell off the tracks and worked back, and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go do an open mic, and then pandemic.
Yeah. Well, you know what a lot of people are doing is, they will do kind of like their own little show on Instagram for people.
Yeah. Yeah, I should certainly consider some of the online stuff there. But
thank you so much for coming on this show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate the offer.
You've been listening to The Jason Rigden Show. More information and links for our guests are in the show notes. For more information about this show, visit jasonrigden.com. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, email jasonrigden@gmail.com or leave a voicemail at 425-835-2766. Our theme music is Bush Week by Nihilor and used under the Creative Commons Attribution License. This episode is copyrighted by Jason Rigden in 2020 and is freely available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license. Thanks for listening and have a great day.